Welcome to the International Forum on Education and Innovation, especially the sub-forum on education. Our very first speaker is Professor Sun from Seattle Colleges in United States of America, former president of TESOL, founding president of MAAL, also chief editor of selected works of renowned TESOL experts. In 2021, Professor Sun, recognized by the English Language Specialist Program of US Department of State as one of 30 specialists who have made a lasting impact on the TESOL. Dr. Sun has delivered over 80 keynote, plenary, and featured presentations at international professional conferences. And her talk today is Trends and Issues in Current ELT Research and Praxis. Professor Sun, over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Eugene, for your kind introduction. Originally, I was thinking just to talk about the ELT, but I think this conference is really about higher education. The issues that I'm going to share actually is higher education and ELT, so that I put a slide so you know what I'm going to talk. Before I start my talk, I would really like to convey my acknowledgement and congratulations. Acknowledgement to the event planning team and organizers for the countless hours that you have spent in organizing the event. And Wenzhou University, Jackie Journal launch, that's a huge congratulations. And also the appreciations to all the speakers and participants, sponsors, of course, and also volunteers. They are the ones behind the scene to make things run smoothly. So we need to acknowledge all the people. Thank you so much. And also it's an honor for me to be invited here to give a talk on the topic that we all care. So I'm going to start my talking points. I will really focus on these three issues. The first is the impact of the pandemic on education and implication directions for higher education, including English language teaching research and practice. And then I'm going to propose some actions for change and then suggest some critical skills and strategies that researchers and also practitioners can use and in our workplace. We know pandemic is no small joke. It has significantly changed the way we live and work. It has significantly changed the way we teach our students doing research. Or many students over the world, I think all over the world, have been forced to learn online or remotely. As we cope with many pandemic disruptions and fight against COVID fatigue, teachers and educators, we have to build the right mindset, competency, and skills to face new challenges and continue to become comfortable with the new realities that define our professional and social lives. That's where we are, and we have all these online platforms, and also we do a lot of hybrid events as well. So what does that mean for higher education? Universities, colleges, we all need to be structured in a way that allow for flexibility, encourage creativity, innovative thinking during challenging times. And also educators need to develop new approaches to ensure multiple modes of learning and support to all students, not some students, not elite students, but all students. And also developing 21st century skills. We have been talking about 21st century skills for at least a decade. Needs to go beyond English language skills. And another issue that's dear to my heart is equity and access. Must be part of the 21st century education policy priorities and be implemented in our research and teaching practice. It's very happy. I was so pleased to see the changes are happening everywhere. I'm going to share some examples. That is what we so-called accountability in practice. Everybody has been talking about accountability. What is accountability? These are the things that's accountability. I'm going to talk about why equity and access must be a top priority for the 21st century education. Take a look at this report. This is Pearson report they did a few years ago, looking at the employment trend in 2030. They identified 9 megatrends or 7 megatrends. One of them is increasing inequality. The haves and have-nots, the gaps are getting much bigger. The situation, if you look at the UNESCO's statistics, the latest one I can find is 2018. That's the study they did. Take a look at it. Worldwide, we have 258.4 million people. Children, adolescents, and youth are out of school. They're not in school. But look at this red and pink. These are alarming. Almost 50% of this population are upper secondary age. What does that mean? They are not public school children anymore. They are too old to stay in public school, but they are not ready to go to university. Look at here. What does that mean? Take a look at our Asia. I think Asia, people say, oh, Asians still are so very well educated, but not so. Take a look at all these statistics. Across the board, upper secondary age, the red bars is alarming. And that's all in Asia. Of course, Africa and Latin America also have issues. Here is 2020. 2 years ago, UNESCO produced another report looking at the gender dimension of COVID-related school closures. 11 million girls are at risk of not going back to school at all. This is a huge issue, not a small issue. I'm sure the situation is no better in China. And we also have rural area, the differences between rural and urban area, the elite universities, and also the technical schools. The data I show, it's really we need to have adult basic education. We focus a lot on higher education and public school, whereas the middle part, for those youth who are out of school, not doing anything, the adult basic education has been a neglected area in current research and program development. Even a lot of publications, we don't see a lot really address adult education issues. And we all know, actually, adult basic education is the economic imperative, not only for individuals, and also for our society. And if you look at the data, they categorize this literacy and digital literacy are the second fastest growth of category in demand in 21st century. And here was a statistic by World Education Organization. 2 years ago, 65% of US jobs required education, at least training beyond high school. That means you have to have university or college or some beyond high school education. 59 million out of 160 million adults. This is in United States, have only high school education or less. It is a concern. And also because now we are in the new knowledge economy, the technology has been growing in so fast, the speed. We need a higher education. The world is so competitive in many ways. Higher education is also a key driver for the economy. And this is the vital role of digital leadership in transforming education. Last year, there was a wonderful book, really talk about the curriculum rigor. The curriculum needs to incorporate digital strategy, rapid integration, organizational transformation. These are all the points that we need to have. However, it's so disappointing to see the needs is not equal to access, because not all students have the same access to quality education, whereas access doesn't mean equality or equity. We often get confused about diversity, equality, equity. Diversity is about making things diverse and making sure inclusion, that's another thing. But all these have different purposes. Diversity is not a goal, it's a means to achieve equity. Equality is to leveling the playing field. Everybody has equal access, but it doesn't mean everybody will reach to the tree to get the fruits. Whereas equity is success for all students. And then you provide the right support and the right resources and the right materials and the right mindset to make sure the weak student can also reach to the fruits. So it's success for all. This is another UNESCO and then the 2030 Framework for Action that was passed and adopted by 184 UNESCO member countries. How many years ago? 2015 in Paris. But have we been doing that? This is the framework for action. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Very noble. But have we been doing that at each university, in each country? It's problematic. I have not seen a real country that even in the United States has been really implemented. So I'm going to propose some actions for change based on the major trends and also suggest some critical strategies. I shared some of the trends. First, we really need to have a paradigm shift. When we talk about equity, historically, we have been talking about, oh, my students are not ready for university. They are not motivated. They are not university material. And they just so not like the older student. It's always student learning problem. It's the deficit mindset. This book, I highly encourage our library to get a copy. From Equity Talk to Equity Walk. Really talked about, actually when we examine the issues, it's not really student learning problem. It's the institutional leadership learning problem, because the institutions are not ready or not prepared to help those students to success, to discover their potential, their academic, competence. It's our practitioners' problem, our researchers' problem, because we are not prepared to serve all students, make them successful. So we should not blame our learners for the problem, rather than the learning problem of ourselves. So we cannot just adopt a best practice to say, okay, I'm going to a conference, I'm going to some webinars to learn some tricks, or to learn some games, learn some strategy, use in the classroom. We have to change our mindset to look at opportunity gaps, to look at a challenging curriculum gaps, and to work with your team, your learning community, to really build curriculum rigor to help our students be successful. Just last month, in April, I went to AERA, American Education Research Association annual conference, where about 6,000 people met face-to-face in San Diego, 3,000 people online, totally 9,000 researchers, educators in higher education met together. What is the theme for this conference? Cultivating equitable education systems for the 21st century. It was so thought-provoking, stimulating, lots of great ideas were shared. Lots of hot topics, all centering around equitable education. How can we cultivate and expand the opportunity by implementing multicultural research, policy, and practice? Set the research agenda. All these well-known researchers, scholars, gave this really stimulating and out-of-the-box thought, forward-thinking research agenda, looking at assessment, how we're going to looking at assessment through equitable lens, and also even looking at the open educational resources. How can we make that more equitable? And also how COVID created new digital learning in the global setting, and also personal learning environment. That's another hot topic on the web, all centering around equitable education. I just felt, oh, this is so totally paradigm different. Here are some of the topics: research quality and then modeling. How do you create systems that equally value innovative, non-traditional methodologies, different research by areas and focus, diverse perspectives, viewpoints, and background? And also, why should we take peer review as the gold standard? Looking at the peer review journal, publish or perish, is that the one that corrupted the system? What is going on? Or people are just now really focused on how can we get my publications into this index, the journals and all the things. Looking at the neoliberal and then these issues behind that. And also, if we look at research trends in ELT, we can see the epistemological diversity everywhere you can imagine. Critical intercultural studies, critical literacy pedagogies, critical language ideologies, anti-racism, academic capitalism, digital literacy, etc., etc. Interdisciplinary collaboration projects is everywhere. Now research is more kind of shifted into research into practice rather than research for research's sake. And then also the theoretical and topical diversity reflected in so many different approaches to research that I listed here, you can read. Now, I see a lot of journals are moving away from narrowly defined second language acquisition studies to a broader, collaborative, interdisciplinary, intersectional, and intercultural, all these critical issues, that kind of research. So that's the trend for research. TESOL has a research agenda. You can search TESOL's website to find TESOL's research agenda. And then TESOL defined the research agenda into 3 domains: research on individuals, student teachers develop in and respond to language learning and language use environment, giving all the changing perspectives on what it means to learn a second language. To a lot of students, they are not second language anymore, additional language. Could be their third or fourth or fifth languages. So second language by itself is problematic. And also research on learning and teaching in the community setting, classroom, online, social networks, or you can learn everywhere. That's students don't just define in those learning spaces, they learn everywhere. And also research on societal changes, societal issues. These are the 3 domains that we see the directions for research. When we categorize research in our journals and in our field, you can also see easily that belongs to these 3 categories. In terms of trends in ELT practices, including higher education practices, I see culturally responsive teaching, the CRT. It's not a critical race theory. It's culturally responsive teaching. It's on the right. Culturally responsive teaching is a way to really address how can we implement asset-based pedagogy, not deficit-based pedagogy, in our classroom. It is not the same as multicultural education or social justice education, even though they are related. But this CRT, culturally responsive teaching, is about building students' learning power and brain power by improving information processing skills and also 21st century skills using cultural learning tools. It is grounded in social and also cognitive neurosciences. These are the 3 books that I like, so I thought that I'll just list it. And then earlier I talked about build academic mindset, because we have a lot of students in the first-tier university. They are highly motivated. We don't have, but we have large majority of our students don't have this academic mindset, don't have the skills to tackle the academic rigor in the competitive university setting or higher education setting. So these are the 4 components that the scholars, the researchers, they really categorize this. I don't have time to go into each one. Later, maybe we can do workshops on that and how to build. This is not about superficial kumbaya and food. Oh, cultural responsive teaching. Let's teach culture. Let's teach holidays. That's not that point at all. That's a misunderstanding. Now, I also want to bring into 21st century skills. I think many years ago, before pandemic, I went to China. I shared about the 7 C's. You all know about that. 7 C's, the components that 21st century skills, fitting and fatal in their 2009 21st century skills learning for life in our times, a powerful book that really shifted the whole curriculum in public schools in United States from K to 22, all revamped the curriculum, K to 12, and then change the curriculum center around these 21st century skills. So you can see that 7 C's. I'm not going to read it. These are the components that I categorized. Another scholar, I think MAAL, is the technology for 21st century. I like the way he categorized 21st century skills into ways of thinking, ways of working, tools for work, skills for living in the world. In these 21st century skills, what I found is missing, especially since the pandemic, it's resilience, agility, adaptability. These are the skills also, it's important part of 21st century skills. Not only 21st and 22nd or 23rd centuries, we still need those skills. So I added resilience and agility and adaptability. Developing resilience, critical thinking is a resilient factor. I categorize that into 9 traits for resilience. Awareness of strengths and assets. Know what your strong point, what is your asset. So we have this, I can do it. So I am good at bouncing back. Strong adversity, fusion, AQ. People talk about EQ, IQ. Now a lot of people are doing AQ. And courageous and calm. When you face difficult challenges, be courageous and calm. Display passion-driven focus. Stay focused, but it's passion-driven focus. Emotional management. Not only you have AQ, you also have good EQ. And also foster a sense of personal agency. We talk about teachers' agency, learners' agency. Agency is important to be successful. Good at critical thinking, problem solving, and also not just you. Help others, reach out to others. You matter. I know you can do it. Tell your peers, tell your classmates that you can do it. And also very insightful and research. And then there are studies found actually resilience is learnable and teachable. As we learn, we increase the range of strategies, we can be more resilient. And also everybody has the power to transform and change. Resilience actually is inside of us as we use it, as we experience, as we learn it, and then we can become more resilient. And then also the teachers need to believe students have the capacity to embrace academic rigor. Ready for rigor, we don't have time to talk about what are the ready for rigor. And also our beliefs, the educators believe in the innate capacity. Believe every student has critical thinking skills, has resilience, that will start to change. Another 2 skills that I think, or competencies you want to talk, it's agility and adaptability. And agility, it's Wagner mentioned of that. And then adaptability to embrace change and be flexible. So these are the things we need to do. And then also I categorize again, students who are agile and adaptable, they have all these A to I, those characteristics here. Accept responsibility, very versatile and flexible, communicate very well, deliver desired results in new and challenging situations. They engage actively in critical thinking, problem solving, and also manage changes so well, handle many roles simultaneously, identify like-minded people, and understand others. They go back to the resilience skill. That's something. But how can we develop those skills, 21st century skills and the resilience during the academic pandemic online learning studies? We have so many tools. And I didn't put down Tengxun. Yeah, I think Tengxun is also a beautiful tool. I see a lot of similarities with Zoom. In the United States, North America, we use Zoom a lot, and we also use Tool everywhere, Google Forms, Kahoot, and Padlet, and Google Slides, Mind Mapping, all these things. These are all the tools that people use in different situations. And a lot of countries, like in Cuba, I just had a meeting with a group of Cuban educators this afternoon. They don't have Zoom, US sanctioned Cuba, and they use Google Meet. They had a terrible storm on that island. So many teachers showed up today, and then to really share their best practices, and also ask me a lot of questions. I was so moved about their resilience, about their dedication to English language teaching under such challenging situations. People, we can all do it. Something that I have no question about it. And also, I use this, create a diamond-shaped poem, and then like the diamond-shaped poem, and then do that with my students. Here are some sample student work. This is a student, and then he did a poem. Me, fearful, dreamful, study, work, social life. Pandemic, disruption, isolation, loneliness. Stress, despair, never give up. Resilient, fully alive, me. Here, and then he drew a picture. Because one of the assignments I asked them to go out to find something that it's kind of touches them related to the pandemic, and that shows who they are. They can draw anything they want. And then this student went to Japanese garden in Seattle, but only to find the garden was closed due to pandemic. So he was disappointed. On the way out back, he stumbled a tree just by the sidewalk that day. He looked at the roots. He found it so inspirational. He couldn't help, so he started sketching this tree. And then he touched the tree, paired the tree with the poem. I was so moved. This is our students, how resilient they are, how creative they are. They taught us about what we don't know about our students. Here is another beautiful painting by a Vietnamese student. You look at this, the winter blossom, 梅花, and then you look at that resilience. We use this. I have 5 questions posted, ask the students to talk about this. And then also I organized Faculty Summer Institute, because before my retirement, I directed the faculty development program for the entire Seattle College district. So these are one of the activity is to do a name tag, a dynamic need. I was also so inspired by my colleagues, how dynamic, how creative, how resilient they are, and then the beliefs they have about teaching, the passion they have, the philosophies they have. You can do the same activity with your students. They will be inspired. There are so many more activities you can do to develop agility, adaptability, and the 7C 21st century skills. Create a situation where students to adapt to the given problem, and then to solve the problem, and provide a variety of tools to solve new problems, not the answer, multiple answers. Offer opportunities to create new ways of doing things using project-based learning activities, and then games. And then there are some websites that really have good websites about how to promote agility, adaptability, games, and adaptability in workplace. And there are more. So and then I put it here. And then for 21st century skills, you look at the project-based learning and service learning that really just fit beautifully. Here are some of the PBL in integrated digital English acceleration program that our college contracted. We got a grant from Gates Foundation to support those adult English language learners, especially refugee immigrant students. My colleagues don't want to teach those students because it's too low. They don't want to, work with them. Many of them barely finish third grade education. Now coming to this adult basic education, learning English along with the digital literacy skills. It's amazing how much they can do at the end of this semester after the class. They demonstrated definitely all the skills I listed. They were able to research online and doing PowerPoint presentation, collaborating groups, and also working on campus to talk about sustainability issues with us. It's just amazing. The civic responsibility, advocacy work, and engagement, all these students demonstrated beautifully. Another skill that this one I used a lot is called RAP for writing across the curriculum. You look at the role, audience, format, and topics. It's a very engaging tool. You can assume a role as a flower talking to a tree. The audience could be a tree. A body part talk to a doctor. The vaccine talk to virus. Writing from a particular format and from a relevant perspective. Now all of a sudden you can see writing becomes alive. Students love doing this kind of writing because they feel they can really demonstrate that creativity. They write so beautiful, so well for all these kind of projects. And then you can also do rap for math. All pizza is not created equal. You can do all these fractions and then improper fractions and then mix the numbers and all these things. So, and I want to, how much time do I have? I hope I still have time.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. You have a lot of time left. Yes, 12 minutes.
Okay. 12 minutes. Good. And then I can save some time for questions, and I can slow down a little bit. That's good. I rushed. That's because I wasn't sure how much time I have. So here's the framework. I think researchers and educators really need to develop us as leaders. So in order to develop effective leadership skills, we need to advocate for student success. We have to be good facilitators and transformers of learning in class. We need to make decisions, sometimes even hard decisions, but if it's good for the student, may not be popular, may not be so-called do things right, but if you do the right thing, you need to make that tough decision for the sake of next generation, for the sake of the larger picture that I think. And also, we often say we have to be reflective practitioners and reflective leaders, and also tell our students to do reflection. And we ourselves need to do that. And then the goal is also not only we want our students to be constructive social change agents, we need to be the role model and to be constructive social change agent. To do this, we also need to think beyond institutional disciplinary boundaries. So, and then think outside the box, have more collaboration. I think this event, the JADI, this conference is a good example of the collaboration across borders, across boundaries, across institutions, across disciplinary areas. It's just wonderful. And also we need to be committed to access, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We have been talking about this. We have to walk the talk and then embrace and encourage curiosity, creative problem solving, and innovation. And our teachers often have an ego. We are the authority, and then we don't want to be challenged. But in this situation, we need to be challenged. If my students can challenge me, and then if I don't have an answer, I tell them I don't have the answer, but I can do some research, I can check with my colleagues, I'll come back, and then we'll talk about it. I also encourage my students, go talk to your classmates, your peers. Maybe you can find the answer, and then we can find out the answers together. Not the answer, answers, plural. This is the thing we need to encourage, critical thinking and all this curiosity. And I think there was a very well-known educator said, once children are at home, they ask questions all the time, but once they come to school, they become the answer. They don't ask questions anymore. Teachers start asking questions. We need to encourage our students asking questions, creative questions, challenging questions. That's how they can demonstrate their critical thinking skills, demonstrate their resilience and all these 7 C skills. And then we also, in order to make researchers, educators, as leaders, we have to shape a stronger vision and inspire others to achieve that vision, working together and reimagine and experiment new things and try different ways of doing it. Try to do research in a different alternative method, and then just uncharted water. I think that's the way we need to go. Take a risk. Leading teams that win over, adversaries through collaboration, and also be a risk taker. If you make a decision, you have to be a risk taker. And also digital skills. I have learned a lot from my students, from my peers. And I'm still learning a lot of, even today, I learned something new from one of the person behind it, one of the staff behind this thing here at the conference. How can I put my image on the screen so that we can be more interactive rather than me talking to the screen? I love that. I really love this. And then also we talk about Praxis, and then we need to transform in teaching. How to transform in teaching? It needs to start from within each of us. The traditional way of teaching, low agency, we all know that. It's a whole list of things everybody's familiar. Deliver instruction, we lecture, we do classroom learning, and then, everything, assessment standardized, one size fits all. And then we learn to do things, and then content memorization, all these things, right? But if you look at transformative approach in teaching, really promote high agency. We facilitate learning rather than delivering instruction. Student learning center, not student center, student learning center. Learning anywhere, everywhere, anytime. Not just bounded within classroom. They can learn anywhere. The cell phone is such an effective tool for students learn, content, materials, and information. Personalized, differentiating instruction instead of standard one-size-fits-all. We do to learn instead of learn to do. Application focused rather than content memorization focused. Encourage curiosity and also critical thinking, problem solving rather than looking for the right answer. Integrating curriculum rather than teaching segmented curriculum. Active learning opportunities versus instead of passive consumption, memorization for the sake of passing it. These are the things we need to promote. Here is a book I really found very thought-provoking. It's published 2 years ago. TESOL teaches education in a transactional world. And this book really critically examined the theoretical the theories, practices in contemporary TESOL teacher education field. And it sheds a new light on the intersection of transactionalism and the language teacher education. The book emphasizes the scholarship of transactional mobility of language teachers, and also showcase the critical research from diverse contexts: Europe, Africa, Arabic countries, Asia, North America, all different areas, from a very diverse and then also a critical perspective. It couldn't find a critical research gap. It filled very nicely a critical research gap by more fully examining the theories and practices of teacher education in the changing time when the national identities, cross-border mobility continue to figure, prominently in scholarly discussions. So I highly, highly recommend the schools, the library. If you can, there's ebook there. Get a copy of this book and find out those chapters. Not difficult to read, but very thought-provoking. Yes. Here are some also other publications that I thought to share with you. There are some really good books and that I like. Talk about deep learning. It's a great book, Assessment and Teaching 21st Century Skills. This book, that's the book I already shared. And then Cultural Responsive Teaching and the Brain is the book has a lot of, specific, examples and then lots of good questions. And also talk about sustainable pedagogical research in higher education. Digital literacy in higher education. This is a hot topic in the United States. If we have not talked about this, I highly encourage you to take a look at this one, Evolving Digital Leadership, Leading in Tough Times, and also research on reflective practice in TESOL, research in higher education, all these books that just some sample books. So I would like to wrap up my talk. When we talk about 21st century higher education or 21st century English language teaching, it is about cultivating equity committed, reflective, resilient, and innovative researchers, educators, and leaders. It is about building culturally responsive teaching guided academic rigor to close equity and achievement gaps. It is about integrating post-pandemic strategies and competencies to achieve success beyond the classroom. Thank you so much. 谢谢大家给我这个机会来分享一下我的2分钱的 thoughts. 好，谢谢。
Professor Sun,
yes.
Can you tell us the difference between equality and equity, and what are the equivalent Chinese words for each of them for our audiences?
Okay. Equity. That's a good question because I've been in US so long, and then let me search for the difference between equity and equality. Equality and equity are totally different things. Equality could be the first step to achieve equity, but equity should be the goal for education. Equity is to make sure everybody can be successful. Students may start from different starting points. Some students already from here, other students from here. With the right support, with the right mindset, with the right classroom environment, and then teachers like us. So every student will take this opportunity. They will have different kind of ways of learning. Eventually, everybody will be successful. That should be the goal, is equity. Whereas equality is people say, let's leveling the playing field. Everybody started equal. How many times we heard the teachers? I do teacher training. I treat every student the same. The very common you make, I treat every student the same. It's problematic because every student is not the same. You should not treat every student the same. That comment itself shows you have little understanding about what is equity, how you as an educator should function in the classroom. My students, if they make such comments, I would call them, challenge them. And then I will try to find the right translation in Chinese. I promise I will send to Lisa or to Professor Eugene, and
That's
then
great.
I will do that. I promise.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Sun.